Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Sunday Gita class with some Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaye Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayan Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Puran Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamrit Varshinim Bhagavati Mashtadashadhyayane Amatvam Anusandhame Bhagavad Gita Bhavdveshane Namo Astute Vyas Vishal Buddhe Full Arvind Ayat Patra Metar Yen Tavya Bharat Tail Purnaha Prajwalito Gyanmaya Pradeepa परपान पारी जाताये तोत्र वेत्र एक पाने ज्ञान मुद्राये कृष्णाये गीता अमृत दुहे नमः सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपाल नंदना पार्थो वत्सा सुधीर भोगता दुग्धम गीता अमृतम महत वसुदेव वसुतम देवम कंस चानूरमर्दनम देवकी परमानंदम कृष्णम वंदे जगद्गुरुम भीष्म द्रोण तटा जयद्रथ चला गांधार नीलोत्पला शल्य ग्रावती कृपेन वहने कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्ण घोर मकरा दुर्योधन अवर्तने सो तीर्णा खलु पांडवै रन्नदी कवर्तका केशवा पाराशरे वत्सरोजमलम गीता अर्थंधोटकम नानाध्यानक केसरम हरिकथा संबोधन अबोधितम लोके सज्जन षटपदे रह पे पिय मानम मुदा व्याद भारत पंकजम कलिमल प्रध्वंसे न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरं यत्कृपातमं वन्दे परमानंद माधवम् यं ब्रह्म वरुण इंद्र रुद्र मरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यस्तवे वेदै सांग पदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यम सामगा ध्यानवस्थि तद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यम योगिनो यस्यन्तं न विदु सुर असुर गणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. You all know the main reason we recite these mantras is before we study whether the Upanishad or Bhagavad Gita or any other scripture, so that our scattered mind comes into the concentration, into what we are studying. Okay? So in these verses, we just thank God, pray to God, help us, so that we can concentrate to understand what we are understanding. We are on chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita, Akshar Brahm Yoga, towards the end of this chapter. Let's look at verse number 21. Avyaktaha aksharaha iti yuktaha tam ahu parmam gatim yam prapye na nirvatante tat dham paramam mama. Avyakt, unmanifested. Aksharaha, imperishable, indestructible. Iti means thus, uktaha, called. Tam means that, ahu, say, parmam, the highest, gatim, the path or the goal. Yam means which, prapye, having reached, na nirvatantehe, do not come back, no return. Tat means that, dham means abode or peace or place, dham, place. Paramam, supreme, highest. Mam means my. So this is Lord Krishna is telling Arjun and to all of us also, because Arjun asked several questions in the beginning of this chapter. So after answering all this, now towards the end, he's going into this deep philosophy. He says, which is called the unmanifest and the imperishable. They say is the highest goal. So that means we have several goals in life. The highest goal is this Akshar Brahma. They who reach it never again return. And then he says, that is my highest abode. Because he talked about several layers of the heaven also, several layers of the hell also. So like a going down and going up. But he says, This unmanifest, this imperishable, this is the highest abode, highest place. From there, you don't come back. That means you have achieved the goal of life, the purpose of life, the unmanifest, imperishable, unmanifest. So this eternal unmanifested factor, the imperishable self, is the highest goal for us to achieve. So if we ever think about it, wonder what is my highest goal? We are all familiar with the short-term goals. Take care of this body, take care of the family, earn the money, right? Save enough for the retirement, do this, do that. But what is the ultimate? Reaching that imperishable. Let's look at the next verse. He's talking about the two paths. Purushaha saparaparth bhagatya labhya tu ananya yasye antah sathani bhutani yen sarvam idam tatam. Purushaha. Purush means the soul. Purush. Sa means that. Para, highest. Parth, Arjuna. Bhaktya, by devotion. Labhya is attainable. Tu means verily. Ananya, without another object. Ananya, just with one. Yasya, of whom. Antah sathane, dwelling within. Situated within. Bhutani, beings. Yen, by whom. Sarvam, all. Idam, this. Tatam, is pervaded. That highest Purusha, O Parth, is attainable by unswerving devotion to him alone. Okay? So devotion, we all think we are devotees, but the key term over here is ananya, the unswerving, without anything else, just to one, not anya. That highest Purush, O Parth, is attainable by unswerving devotion to him alone, within whom all beings dwell, by whom all this is pervaded. He's talking about Brahm. Brahm is pervaded everywhere. There's no place where Brahm is not. So Brahm is the all-pervading form of God which is everywhere. If you want to know the definition of Brahm. Only one supreme entity. It's like a divine light. Divine light which is nirgun, without qualities. There's no sattvikta, rajasikta or tamsikta in that. Nirvishesh, without any attributes. And nirakar, without form. That is Brahm. That's why the title of this chapter is Akshar Brahm. So he says everywhere. That really means that God is equally present everywhere. We cannot say that the all-pervading God is 25% here and 75% there. No. He is 100% everywhere. In the form also, in the formless also, in the light also, in the dark also. 100%. All-pervading presence of God. But that all-pervading presence of God does not benefit us because we don't have any perception of it. So God is everywhere, but we don't get the benefit. That's why the bhakti, through that ananya bhakti, we can perceive. And ananya bhakti we need to do. There's a sadhana we need to do. That's why all those upasanas, all those yajnas, all those artis, selfless service, all of that constitute the sadhana. Studying the scriptures also. There has been a sage, Shandilya, who has written a lot about Bhakti Shastra. He gave the example of a cow. He says milk resides in the body of the cow, but it does not benefit the health of the cow. If a cow is weak and sick, sure, the same milk can be extracted, converted into yogurt, and if you feed it to the cow, cow will get better. He says, Gavam sarvehi sharir sthanam na krotyang poshnam. So the same way, the Brahm is everywhere, but we got to learn how to connect with that Brahm. And that's why the scriptures, they talk about God as Paramatma also. Brahm we cannot connect. Paramatma is the aspect of God that is seated in everyone's heart. See God in others' heart, at least. The realization of the Supreme Entity as Paramatma is a closer realization than Brahma. We'll see that in chapter 18, Lord Krishna says, "O Arjun, the Supreme Lord dwells in the hearts of all living beings. According to their karmas, he directs the wandering of the souls who are seated on a machine made out of the material, this Maya." So if we see God in the heart of human beings or heart of the being, maybe we can get in touch with Brahma. If we can't even do that, the rishis, they say, there is a Bhagwan. Bhagwan is the aspect of God that manifests in a personal form. It descends upon the earth for the welfare of the world. Bhagwan. Those are the avatars. Attributes of Bhagwan do exist in Brahm and Paramatma as well. But those attributes, they stay latent, just as a fire is latent in a matchstick. It will manifest only when you strike it against the igniting strip of the matchbox. Otherwise, it just stays there. Same way in Bhagwan, all the powers and aspects of the God personally get revealed. So that's why we see in certain personality, we see the godly presence. Start from there. In those personalities. And look at the heart of everybody. Maybe you can raise your awareness to that level and then raise the awareness to that Brahma, which is everywhere. 100% everywhere. So that's why he says the highest Purusha path is attainable by unswerving devotion to him alone, within whom all beings dwell, by whom all this is pervaded. So he's very clearly giving us a technique and the path by which we can attain the Supreme Purusha. Love only God. Ananya Bhakti. Single pointed devotion is the way and the means. Remember that, single pointed. And devotion is what? Devotion is actually total selfless identification to that Supreme Purusha's devotion. Identification with them. When we learn to disassociate from everything else, all our preoccupations in the world, and just see that oneness with him. That is Ananya Bhakti. This detachment from the temporary is gained in a growing attachment with the real. If we are attached to God 25%, we are loving God 25%. If we are attaching our mind 50% to God, we are loving God 50%. When we are attaching to God 50%, that means our own ego is lowered by 50%. That means our fear is lowered also 50%. Anxiety is lowered by 50% too. So it's up to us what percentage we want to attach to God. If we are attaching to the world 100%, we are 100% arrogant and 100% fearful and 100% stressful and 100% worryful. Choice is ours. Because in God, there's no fear, there's no worry, there's no stress, there's no opposite of love. It's only love, love, and love. So Lord Krishna is suggesting that 100%, that is Ananya, 100% love to God and God alone. He says, the self I am. That is the unswerving devotion to him alone. So oneness of the self with the truth behind the entire world. Now in the next verse, he's talking about the two paths. Two paths means path of going up and path of going down. Yatra kale tu anavritam avritam cha ev yogina pariyataha yanti tam kalam vakshyami bharat rishabha. Yatra means where, kale means time, tu means verily, anavritam non-return, and avritam return. So these are the two paths, return and non-return. Cha means and, ev means even, yogina, yogis. Pariyataha, departing. That means the dying, leaving this casing. Yanti, go to or attain. Tam means that, kalam means time. Vakshyami, I will describe, I will tell. Bharat Rishabh, o chief of the Bharats, Arjun. Now at what time? Departing, yogis go, never to return, as also to return. Over here, yogi means abhyasi, a sadhak, a practitioner. Okay. So not a yogi who's a yoga yukta, not that yogi he's talking about. So now at what time or what path departing yogis go, never to return, as also to return. That path I will tell you, that time I will tell you, O chief of Bharats. So two goals in life he has been talking about. What are these two goals? One is the extrovert life of satisfying the ego, where we gain flickering joys among the sense objects. And the second one is the divine mission. When we are seeking that imperishable by ending the ego. Ego is what? Identification with the false is the ego. So ending the ego, and we rediscover the real nature, that we are nothing other than God. So that's why he's talking about two goals. They're different from each other. So with one goal, we return again and again. We identify with the finite. Sure, in order to gain more in the finite, we return again. But if our goal is the infinite, then there's no return. So the realized one comes to experience and enjoy the infinite beatitude of the bliss absolute. So if there are two goals, that means there are two different paths. So that's why sometimes we use the word goal, sometimes the path. So one path takes us from where we'll come back again, and the other path, there's no return. Now, in the next couple of verses, he's telling us which one is no return path and which one is a return path. Over here in these couple of verses, he's using the mystic language of the Upanishads. So don't take this language literally. Agni, Jyoti, Aha Shuklaha, Shanmasa, Uttarayanam, Tatra Paryata, Gachanti, Brahm, Vidajana. Agni, fire. Jyoti, light. Aha, day. Shuklaha, the bright fortnight. Shanmasaha, 6 months. Uttarayanam, the northern course of the sun. Tatra means there. Paryata, departed. Gachanti, go. Brahm, Vidha. Those who know Brahm. So Brahmvida means those who know Brahm and Brahma. Jana, people. So fire, light, daytime, the bright fortnight, the 6 months of the northern solstice. Following this path, men who know Brahm go to Brahm. We should not forget that Gita is what? A milk of the Upanishads, nectar from the Upanishads. So that's why here and there we see the mystic language of the Upanishads over here. See, you remember in the beginning we sing that verse, Sarvo Upanishado Gavo, Dogda Gopal Nandana. So Gopal Nandan has churned the milk for us from all the Upanishads and given this to us. Okay. So first of all, this is a symbolic message over here. It's not when we die, if there's a daytime, or if it's a light, or there's a diya burning in front of us. That's not how it means. So it's a symbolism. Darkness really means the ignorance. Light means the knowledge. And we don't cultivate this knowledge at the time of the death. We cultivate this knowledge starting right now. Not just even today, right now. Those whose consciousness is established in God and detached from the sensual pursuits, when they depart and they go on the path of the light. And this light means the knowledge and the discrimination. And they will attain that supreme abode of God. But we'll see in the next verse that those whose consciousness is attached to the world, they will depart on the path of the darkness. That means ignorance. That means attachment to the world, entangled in the bodily concept of life. My body, my wealth, my children, my grandchildren, my relatives, my position, that is all darkness. It's all temporary. Because they all give us the illusion of the separation from God, and they continue to keep us away from God, and we keep on rotating in the cycle of this coming and going. So this is what he is trying to tell us. Sure, there is a krama mukti, gradual liberation, So through our upasanas, through our sadhanas, we are supposed to just keep on climbing up and up and up. Path of the guide. This we learned in Prashan Upanishad also. Prashan Upanishad. Clearly, the Yamaraj is telling Nachiketa, all of this what we are learning here, the two paths. So again, it's a mystical language of the Upanishads. So northern path, if we look at it in our own body, we have the chakras. Northern chakras are which one? Anything above the heart chakra. The Vishuddha chakra, the Agya chakra, the Sahasrara chakra, they are the northern chakras. If our attention is over there most of the time, we are on the path of no return. And what are the lower chakras? Manipur chakra, the Swadhisthana chakra, the moon, okay, the root chakra. So remember that. So when we meditate, sure, if you cannot meditate here yet, start meditating. Bring your awareness, bring your consciousness into the upper. Okay, that kind of a frequency. So northern and the southern, that's what it means. It has nothing to do with the sun outside or the day and the night or what kind of a lunar cycle it is. It's our own awareness. I mean, logically also, if you think about it, I mean, if the Uttarayan, northern course of the sun, many people are dying at that time. That doesn't mean they all are going on towards the Brahmlok. Okay, many people. Every second there are people dying. And not only the people, there are animals, the birds, the reptiles, the trees. So it has nothing to do with the northern course of the sun or the southern course of the sun. It's our own awareness, our own practice, our own sadhana. So in contrast to this, the path of non-return, let's look at it. What is the path of return? Dhumaha ratri tatha krishnaha shanmasa dakshinayanam tatra chandrmasam jyoti yogi prapye nirvatate. Dhumaha, smoke. Ratri, night. Tatha, also. Krishnaha, the dark fortnight. See, there's a Krishna Paksh and a Shukla Paksh. Shanmasaha, 6 months. Dakshinayanam, the southern course of the sun. Tatra Chandramasam. Tatra means there. Chandramasam, lunar. Jyoti, light. Yogi, prapye, having attained. Nirvatate, returns. Smoke, nighttime, the dark fortnight. Also the 6 months of the southern solstice. Attaining by these to the moon, the lunar light, the yogi returns. Lunar was called the matter, if you remember that Upanishad. And the sun was called the energy. So this is again a mystic language. So the path of the return is also called the path of the ancestors, Pitriyan. And then the Lord Krishna used those words before, Pitriyan and Devyan. The path to the divine and the path to the matter. Pitriyan. The world of the matter. And Pitri really means ancestors. And that also means attachment to the worldly relationships. So world of the ancestors. So the moon represents the world of the matter, presiding deity of the sense enjoyments. So now we got to look at our own mind, our own thoughts, our own awareness. Where are we most of the time? Is it towards the sense pleasure? Or is our mind attached to divinity? Is it dense, the dark, full of fear and full of worry? Or does it feel light, full of bliss and the purity? We should pay attention to it. We are developing all the time. Are we developing upward or we are going downward? Nothing stays at the same place all the time. To conclude this, Lord Krishna is adding, Shukal Krishne gati hi ete jagataha shashvate mate ekyaha yati anavritam anyaha avartate punaha. Shukal Krishna, bright and dark, gati, paths, he means verily, ete, these, jagataha, this material world, shashvate, eternal, mate, thought of or opinion, ekyaha, by one, yati, goes, anavritim, to non-return, anya, by another, avartate, comes back, returns, punaha, again. The path of light and the path of darkness available for the world are verily thought to be both eternal. By the one, the path of light, a man goes to return not. By the other, the path of darkness, he returns again. Okay? Eternal really means over here, it is so long, so many times we can come. It's not just 100 times or 1,000 times. We can just, it's a cycle, we can keep coming again and again and again. Countless times. So two paths are so clearly described by Lord Krishna for us. And he says the path of light and the path of darkness. So remember, path of light will take us to no return. Path of darkness will bring us back again and again. Choice is ours. Or you can call it a path of moksha or path of sansara. We decide that. With our own mind, we decide that. The kind of thoughts we have, kind of actions we have, because thoughts are the father of our actions. So the kind of thoughts, we got to change our thoughts. Are our thoughts secular or sacred? If those words make sense to you. This is all language. Whichever word makes sense and whichever way you can just change the direction. So these two paths are to be considered as truly eternal. So this is what the entire sansar is. This is what the world is. And what exactly is the gain in knowing these two paths? Again, he's telling us in the next verse. Because all these verses are just about these two paths. Na ete sriti parth janan yogi muhati kashchana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukta bhav arjuna. No means not, ete means these two. Sriti, paths, parth is Arjuna, janan, knowing. Yogi, muhyati, deluded or bewildered. Question, anyone. Tasmat, therefore, sarveshu, in all, kaleshu, times. Yoga yuktaha, steadfast in yoga, situated in yoga. Bhav means be, Arjuna. See, yogis are the aspirants who are striving to unite their minds with God. Remember that. They are striving. See, strivers are also called the yogis. Even though they are like a yoga classes, so yogis, like a student in a kindergarten, is a student also. A person who's doing in a medical school or a law school or in a postgraduate, they are students too. Okay, so that's why he's using the word yogi over here, a striver. Knowing these two paths, oh Bharata, no yogi is deluded. So that's why knowledge is important. Therefore, at all times, be steadfast in yoga. See this term, at all times, sometimes it scares us. That's why if we cannot do it at all times, start doing it at least at some times. While meditating, while praying, while eating, before going to sleep, first thing in the morning, several times a day. See the benefit of it. While walking outside, while doing yoga, while serving somebody, while learning something. So if at all times we think we cannot do it, try to do it more and more. Many of us follow the path of light for some times. We do it. We get encouraged. We listen to somebody, watch somebody, something happens in our life. We start following the path of light. We detach from the temporary. But then after a while, we regress to the path of darkness. Often it happens. It's almost like if someone wishes to go towards north, but keeps going few miles north and few miles south, or 2 miles north and 3 miles south, where will that person be? Despite endeavoring greatly. There's a walk forward, walk backward. Still there's a walk, but ultimately that person is in the south, where he started. The same thing happens in our life also. From childhood, we were told to be good, be honest, help others. You are not the body. You are the soul. You are part of God. Help others. Be compassionate, be kind. We were told that, all of us. Every parent on this earth wants their children to be good, honest. But here and there, we start moving away from this. We become selfish. We become jealous. We hurt somebody. We like this person and don't like many other. Where does it take us? It puts us on the path of the darkness. Even though we have walked on the path of the light for some times, but ultimately it puts us on the path of darkness. So that's why Lord Krishna keeps on telling us, Sarveshu Kaleshu. It's not to scare us. He just wants to encourage us that, hey, it is doable. Remember him more and more and more. And he says, no yogi is deluded knowing these paths. We got to remember these are the two paths. If our choice is to come back here again, that's fine, if that's what we choose. But the yogi is the one who knows what the goal is, what the ultimate goal is. Doesn't want to go on the path of return. Want to be on the path of no return. So that's why Lord Krishna is summarizing all. In fact, the whole chapter over here, he's summarizing in these verses. He says, therefore, Arjun, be a yogi at all times. And what is the opposite of yogi? A bhogi. Do we want to be bhogis or yogis? Choice is ours. Bhogi is on the path of return. Yogi is on the path of no return. So learn to withdraw your false identifications through the single-pointed love for God alone. So this entire chapter is actually a very, very powerful plea recommended by Lord Krishna to all of us. Ananya Bhakti. Selfless identification with the eternal, imperishable Purush. We must constantly move ahead in the right direction and stop even looking at the wrong direction. Because what happens, even if we look at the wrong direction, we get tempted. Our senses are very powerful. They delude us. If we don't look at the wrong direction, only then we will go forward. That's why Lord Krishna adds over here, he says, Yoga yuktaha bhav arjun, be a yogi at all times. A yogi at all times. Let's look at the last verse of this chapter also. Verse number 28. Vedeshu yagyeshu tapahasu cha ev daneshu yat punyaphalam padishtam atyeti tat sarvam idam viditvaha yogi param sthanam upati cha adhyam. Vedeshu, in the Vedas, that means the study of the Vedas. Yagyeshu, the performance of the yagya, the sacrifices. Tapahasu, in austerities. Tapasya. Cha means and, ev means also. Daneshu, in charities. When we give, help others. Yat, whatever. Punya phalam, fruits of the merit. Padishtam, declared or gained. Atyeti, surpasses. Tat means that. Sarvam means all. Idam means thus. Viditva, having known. Yogi. Param means superior, supreme. Sathanam, abode. Upati, attains. Cha means and. Adhyam. Adhyam means the original, the first, primal. Whatever fruit of merit is declared in the scriptures, in the Vedas, as springing up from study. See, when we study the Vedas, the fruit which comes from performance of the yagyas, from practice of the austerities, and also from charity. Beyond all these goes the yogi, who, having known this means the two paths, attains to the supreme essence. Upati cha adya. Okay. So he's not putting down the study of the Vedas or the tap and the yajna or the dan. He says those are all the means. End is to become one with God, to be a yogi. Because we know that we accumulate knowledge, perform austerities, donate in charity. But unless we engage in devotion to God, we are still not on the path of light. Because we can study, memorize the Vedas, and we can become scholar. We can become very arrogant. Or we can do the tapasya and we can say that, oh my God, there's no other tapasvi like me. Or we can give the charity and we say, oh God, I'm the biggest person who has given the millions and the billions. Bhakti is the only one which will make us humble. Do all these. Those are all good deeds to do. but make sure that they bring the ego down. If our ego gets bigger and fatter while doing all that, we are on the path of darkness. So if we want to be on the path of light, the Devyan of the northern path, then the path of light. Sacred actions are needed. Worship of the deity is important. But the attitude while you do all that, got to watch. Selfless dedication and true devotion. Because we do all that to purify ourselves. So whatever meritorious results are promised in the scriptures, after studying the Vedas, or performance of the yajnas, or the practice of the austerities and selfless charity, they are all good. But not as a bhogi, as a yogi we need to that. Because all those actions, they just stay as mundane good deeds only. They are good deeds, but good deeds result in the material rewards. But if we add divinity in there, devotion to God, then all those good deeds will result in liberation from the material bondage. Name, dharam, achar, tap, jnana, yajna, jap, dana. Beshach punhi kar inaha nahi, rog jahi hari jana. That means you may, this is from Ramayana, you may engage in good conduct, righteous austerities, sacrifices, chanting of mantras, and even charity, but without devotion to God. He says, Tulsidas-ji says, the mind's disease of material consciousness will not cease. Rog jahi, nahi rog jahi hari jaan. Without knowing God, this rogue of the mind, the mental disease, is not going to go away. The yogis who follow the path of light detach their mind from the world and attach it to God. Just remember that. Okay? So we got to just look at our mind. Where is it attached? Where is it attached? While doing all that, while studying also, while doing the austerities also, we all do the different ways, the austerities. Tapasya we do. We do the dhan also. Where is our mind? Only we know our mind. Nobody else knows about our mind. We know our mind, where it is. So keep an eye on the mind. That's what Lord Krishna is saying to us. So we learned the two ways, two paths. And based upon the path, the end also we know. So it's up to us to decide which end we want. Do we want to reach the imperishable Brahm, or do we want to come back here for a little bit more kicks? Okay, you remember Lord Krishna said in the last week we learned, he called this world as a Dukhalayam. It's a house of misery. Do we want to come back into the house of misery, or do we want to reach that infinite bliss? So this is the end of this chapter. Next time we will start with chapter 9. Raj Vidya Raj Guhyo. Om Purnamada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.